I'm assuming that people are sort of familiar with the plot because there's been so much press about it because of the awards season.
Remind me.
Okay, so the story is at the very, very beginning we have Christoph Waltz, who is apparently some form of dentist, going in this with a big tooth on the top of his truck. He comes across Jamie Foxx, whom he effectively frees. And he then says, Jamie Foxx says, I'm trying to find my wife. And it turns out through a sort of bizarre set of coincidences that there's a reason why, I'm trying to give away as little plot as possible, that there is a bizarre reason why it would be in both their interests to go looking for his wife. And we believe his wife is now on a plantation, Candyland, overseen by, as Mark Strong was just saying, Leonardo DiCaprio's Candy, who is this horrible, vile, foul character. So therefore we have Christoph Waltz and Jamie Foxx going to get back Jamie Foxx's partner from the horrible, vile Candyland. Here is a clip at Candyland, because in order to do this, they are having to effectively, having to pretend to be other people. Here's a clip.
What's your name, boy?
His name is Django Freeman.
Where'd you dig him up?
Well, fortuitous turn of events brought Django and myself together.
I've heard tell about you. I heard you've been telling everybody that Mandingos ain't no damn good. Ain't nothing nobody is selling is worth buying. I'm curious. What makes you such a Mandingo expert?
I'm curious what makes you so curious.
What did you say, boy?
Calm down, Butch. No offense given. None taken.
Monsieur Condy, I'd appreciate if you could direct your line of inquiry toward me.
One, you do not have anything to drink. Can I get you a tasty refreshment?
Yes, I'll have a beer.
Wonderbar. Roscoe, a beer for the man with the beard, and I will have a Polynesian pearl diver. Do not spare the rum.
So you could tell from that clip that Quentin Tarantino is in full Tarantino dialogue mode, right down to the fact about a tasty beverage, which is pretty much refers right back to the scene from Pulp Fiction. I'm sorry, let me have your tasty beverage. Here's the thing with Django, and there's been an awful lot of press about it. Some reviews have been really sort of fulsome. I saw it got a 5-star review in The Guardian today. My feelings about it are this. On the one hand, let's look at the good stuff first. There is some great stuff in Django. And I want to like Quentin Tarantino again, because I remember how excited I was about Tarantino when his career first began, seeing Reservoir Dogs and really being knocked out by it, seeing Pulp Fiction and thinking, actually, that may even be a step up. And I still, as I've said before, hold Jackie Brown in the highest of esteems. And I've sort of fallen out of love with Tarantino recently because through films like Kill Bill and, the ill discipline of something like Death Proof, which I thought was just an indulgence. And the thing about him is he clearly has a way with actors. He gets terrific performances out of his actors. He gets them to do stuff that they don't do elsewhere. And there are, in Django, some really, really fine performances. Jamie Foxx is a, great, charismatic, enigmatic hero. Christoph Waltz does that absolutely brilliant thing about somehow being very polite but very, very dangerous, and he's a fantastically witty screen presence, and we really have Tarantino to thank for the fact that he has this huge profile, because as he himself said when he was receiving, I think it was the Oscar, wasn't it, without Tarantino this wouldn't happen to him, and he builds on the promise that you saw in Inglourious, and he does it really, really well. There is also an unbelievable performance from Samuel Jackson, which is really, completely counterintuitive and does exactly the opposite of what you'd expect Samuel Jackson's character to do, because plays somebody who's completely enthralled by his master, who is Leonardo DiCaprio, and it's one of those performances that pushes all these buttons, and it's strange and it's twisted, and I think it's a remarkable performance. So all that stuff is great. Also, there is no doubting that Tarantino does set pieces with brio. I mean, he's somebody who loves cinema. Not only that, he loves film. And I mean, this is another reason for me to like him. When, Inglourious was out in the cinemas, it was going out in 35mm print at the time that everybody was doing things on digital. And Tarantino was saying, no, this needs to be, seen in 35mm. He's a great defender of film, and he loves film like he loves old kind of vinyl records. Plus, he's absolutely marinated in the exploitation genre, of which I am so fond. I mean, the interesting thing about Django Unchained is not only does it refer to the Django movies, and Franco Nero, of course, makes a cameo here, but also it refers to movies like Mandingo, which, of course, are sort of.
You say, of course, but I am unaware of them.
But you must remember when Mandingo came out, and it was an I mean, it was it was it was one of those exploitation films. It was on Channel years and years ago. They showed a version of it on Channel 4, and I was introducing stuff on Channel 4. And at one point, we came up, Mandingo was coming up, and they said, we'd like you to introduce it, or actually, more correctly speaking, we'd like you to apologise for it. It was one of those kind of 70s exploitation movies that needed apologising for. So these are all his frames of reference. And there is clearly evidence on screen that he's doing the thing which he does best, which is being a filmmaker with a love of film, and who is reacting really well with his actors, and he understands camera angles and all that stuff. So there is 95, 100 minutes of a really good, exciting confrontational movie in there. The other thing I like about it is, there's been an awful lot of discussion about the political incorrectness of it. I mean, he has a really strange obsession with the N-word, and it's almost at some point I think he's actually done this drama about slavery in order that he can contextualize that, but maybe that's reading too much into it. And it is a film which is it's kind of rude. The manner of the film is rude and abrasive and un-PC, although at the same time, as you know, there are infinite articles. There are as many articles written about the racial politics of Django as there are articles written about the politics of Zero Dark 30, and that's fine. I think movies that do those things, absolutely fine. Although that said, during that Channel 4 interview, it was kind of... It was slightly made me bridle that Quentin Tarantino spent 4 or 5 minutes saying that he put the issue of slavery finally into discussion, so finally it could be discussed openly, as if nobody had ever done that before. The problem with Django is nothing to do with the politics of it. With the politics of it, I said, can be argued infinitely with Spike Lee on the one hand, Sam Jackson on the other hand. All these things can be infinite. The problems are cinematic, and the key problem is this: it's a lack of discipline. That by 2/3 of the way through the film, you think, okay, when the film is the best part of 3 hours long, you think, okay, you've done the stuff, and you've taken us through exploitation violence, which he clearly loves, and fine, he's allowed to love exploitation violence, that's absolutely fine, and he's done all that stuff. But there is a moment 2/3 of the way through the film when Tarantino himself appears on screen, and it's literally like you can draw a line in the negative and go, there, now you've got to go. And he comes on with a bizarre Australian accent.
It's the worst accent I've seen in a long, long time.
And suddenly you're back into, I remember why I lost patience. Suddenly you're back into the Kill Bill parts 1 and 2. Suddenly you're back into the nonsensical stuff of Death Proof. Suddenly you're thrown back into all those things that bothered you. And I'll say this because I know that some people really, really love and enjoy Django, and I understand why, because there are things in it that I really liked. I was moved, I was shocked, I laughed plenty of times, but I was also kind of worn down by it by the end. And the moment that Tarantino comes on screen, and it's almost like the film has kind of sighed its way out, and then it kind of goes, which is a problem because it means that you leave remembering that length in it, remembering the fact that it lacks discipline, that what it really needs is to be reined in. Now, somebody wrote me an email and said, look, Jackie Brown is almost exactly the same length, but how come you didn't complain about Jackie Brown? And the reason is Jackie Brown has a narrative which is much better told. Partly, obviously, it's because it's not Quentin Tarantino's original narrative. It's from a source, and it does show what happens with that structure. The same problem was true with Inglourious Ahum, that there is such great stuff in Inglourious Ahum which equally deals in a rude and brash manner with a potentially difficult subject matter, which is World War II and Nazism. And you can compare the way in which this deals with its potentially difficult subject matter, and you can say that they're both. There's no reason why exploitation cinema can't talk about serious subjects. But the problem isn't that. The problem is doing it over 3 hours. It's like, on the one hand, you want your exploitation cake, but on the other hand, you also want to have the full 3 hours because you're an auteur director. So there is, and I say this very clearly, there is 100 minutes of good, exciting, really good stuff in there, and Christoph Waltz is great, and Sam Jackson is terrific, and Jamie Foxx, all that stuff is there. But the problem of the ill discipline is really wearing. And it's a shame because having laughed, having been shocked, having been, I ended up feeling slightly exhausted, and I don't want to come out of a Quentin Tarantino film feeling slightly exhausted. It's not a 5-star film. I mean, if I was doing stars, which I don't, okay, fine.
Sounds like 3 though. So there was a point.
3.5.
Oh, okay. There was a point after about 90 minutes where I found myself thinking, I really, really hope that Quentin Tarantino never feels as though he has to make a film about Northern Ireland or Syria or something or something that you know that matters or has some contemporary relevance, because just it felt to me as though he wanted to make a Quentin Tarantino movie, and I'm sure this wasn't the process, but it just felt as though you think, I know where can I what kind of structure can I give it? I know I'll put that kind of film that I make, and I'll make a film about slavery.
Yeah. That didn't bother me until I saw him on the news saying that what he had done was put it on the map so that people could finally discuss it, and you felt like,
I think some people.
I think it has been discussed, Quentin. I mean, thanks for that, but I think generally it has been discussed before.
And lots of you have seen it, and lots of comment on Django Unchained. Get to your emails in just a moment. Now, 3:34.